So I just made a decision that I really wanted to teach people on the line. I really wanted to be involved in my community, specifically when it came to teaching people, making sure people really understood the dangers of COVID-19, as well as increasing access and exposure to the vaccine. These are things that were really important to me. So I made the time for it. I'm not saying it's easy, I've sacrificed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nancy Joseph, aka The Dynamic Doc. Welcome to another episode of How Do You Medicine, where we talk to health professionals about their journey and celebrate their journey and talk to them about how they do medicine and healthcare differently. So today our guest is Dr. Katrina Bird. So Dr. Bird is an infectious disease doctor, but she's board certified both in internal medicine and adult infectious disease. She got her degree of biology at Xavier University in Louisiana, and it was in microbiology. And then she went on to do medicine and she's Meharry Maid, and so did her medical degree at Meharry College of Medicine in Nashville, or Medical College, in Nashville, Tennessee. And so then went on to do her Med Peds residency. So for those who don't know, it is a dual residency in internal medicine and pediatrics. So she went on to do that at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And if that wasn't enough, she then went on to subspecialize in infectious disease, but not just one, adult pediatrics, but she's subspecializing both in adults and pediatric infectious disease. And so we'll talk all about her journey on this episode. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Bird.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody.
Yes. So first, let's just talk about like your medical journey, right? So after medical school, of course, you decided to do your specialty in Med Peds. So why both and not just medicine or just pediatrics?
Yeah, so like when I went to med school, I knew I wanted to specialize in infectious diseases, but primarily for adults. Like actually, my story is a little bit bigger. So I actually went to Xavier University of Louisiana for undergrad, and I was there in August 2005. And if you remember, that's when Hurricane Katrina hit. Mm-hmm. So I was one of about 400 people who needed to be evacuated from Xavier University. And I ultimately, for that semester, went to Wayne State University, which is in Detroit, where I'm from. So I was a biology major, as you mentioned, at the time, so I decided to take a microbiology class. So at that point, that's when I was exposed to infectious diseases, bacteria like Staph aureus and the types of diseases it could cause. And in that kind of phase of my life, I was like, I'm not quite sure what I want to do, and I'm not that interested in a lot of things. However, when I took that class, I was like, oh my God, this is my calling in life. I just was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. So I changed my major from biology to microbiology. And from there on, I said, I want to learn more about infections, and I want to be an infectious disease doctor. So to answer your question, by the time I got to medical school, I said, I want to do internal medicine, and I know I'll need to do additional training in infectious diseases. However, I did my pediatric rotation, and I was like, wow, this is actually kind of cool too. I like treating kids. I do a lot of volunteer work with kids anyway. So how is it possible to do both? And so I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, there are people who actually, do this thing called Med Peds residency. And they do this thing, where they combine adult and pediatric infectious diseases. So I said, okay, let's do it. And so that kind of started my journey.
Oh, nice. So here you are then, like now you're getting your board certification and doing all of this stuff. And in the middle of, you're kind of finishing up kind of the latter parts of your training, in the middle of all of that, which, you know, medical training in itself is like a different beast, you've kind of decided that you even while in training, you want to, you know, increase your voice even more in the digital space and be more involved in that. So talk to me about that journey and really how you made the decision, because really you could have just been like, you know, medicine's enough. I'm in training. Let me just focus on that. Let me be tunnel visioned, and just do that. And there would have been nothing wrong with that, right? But you made the decision to do more. So talk to me about, you know, why you made that decision.
All right. So it all started when I got an Instagram account. I believe you were one of many people who said, "Oh yeah, Katrina, you should have Instagram." I'm like, "What is that?" Like, I don't want to put my personal information out there. And then I was like, "Oh, okay, everyone has IG. Let me just see how can I leverage this to share information that I want to share." So then I made the decision, okay, I actually think infectious diseases is really cool. And I feel like I have a lot of things to say about it. I can, you know, kind of teach people who are in medicine and people who aren't. So then I was like, okay, let me just try to educate people. It's not many people who are doing that on IG at the time when I started. Then the pandemic hit. And then really I was like, okay, well, this is like an opportunity that I really feel that need to get positive information out there, because as you probably experienced, there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of, and I felt like good voices from infectious disease specialists were basically being drowned out. And so that
Right.
was like another kind of impetus that really got me going and said, hey, let me get real hard facts out here to the masses. And so I enjoy, you know, posting things and teaching people about infections because they're cool.
Right. And then I think, and you know, correct me if I'm, do you feel like being, because you're on various platforms, you didn't just stop at Instagram, you know, you were, you know, a little, you know, a baby at Instagram like yesterday, but now you're no longer, you know, a unidimensional virtual presence. You're now Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you know, a Twitter attrition, if you will, as you said. So now you're in all of these. Did you ever, it was that the initial plan, or did that just kind of come about where you were just kind of like, you know what, why not do such and such as well?
No, it was, well, it definitely was not the plan. I was like, I'm just gonna dibble dabble on IG and that's it, right? But I felt like I was putting a lot of effort in my content, but I wasn't reaching as many people as I wanted. And so as I, you know, anyone who's on social media, you know, cross-posting and really promoting your IG content on multiple platforms is really one way in which you can increase your reach. And so that's why I decided to go to different platforms, and just to, with the overall goal of teaching people and giving like good accurate information that's well researched, because I definitely put my references,
Oh, nice. Yep, yep.
you
So,
know,
you
in my
know,
post.
absolutely. Because you don't want to be that, you know, you don't add to the misinformation, right?
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, because as you said, the experts were being drowned out. And so you wanted to add to the reputable sources that were out there. So just, you know, it's important. I think the important point here is to, and I reference this quote all the time, the singer Monica, they had asked her, hey, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you say? And one of her answers, I don't know, I think it was in a radio interview, and she said, when you talk, say something, right? And so, you know, you have the option of just being like, just kind of going off the top of your head and saying whatever, but you've made the decision to be, because you could, right? Because you're in training, and you know, and not even with the current training, you've had training, so you obviously are a reputable source in and of yourself, but you made the decision to be even more well informed so that everything you get out there is concise and as accurate and updated. And so that's important for people to know, that when you talk, say something, because a lot of people are out there talking, but maybe not a lot of people are out there, or maybe not enough, and as many as we'd like are out there saying something. And so being able to, reputably say something is important. And so what do you find, and for people who want to do that, right? Like people who want to have a digital presence. And, I've watched you grow from a little IG baby to a multi-digital powerhouse. My little baby is no longer a baby. She's a grown woman now. Amen. How would you say because there are people who are like not even on Instagram, or maybe they are. And then I know people who will like pull back like every 5 seconds. What advice would you give those people who maybe I have something to say. I feel like I have something to say, but I'm scared because of what you said, because I don't want to share my life. I want to say what I want to say, but then do I want to be that present? Or, you know what I mean? What are the goods and the bads? What advice would you give those people who are like, I don't know what to do to get started, and do the cross posting, right? Because that's a whole different part of it too.
Yeah, I think it was very difficult to find my voice because, I said, I knew it, at least I knew I wanted to talk about infectious diseases, but it was like, what do people care about? Like, I care about a whole bunch of things. Like, I like pharmacology, I like to look at plates in the lab, but do people really want to hear that information? And so I think get started. That's like my number one advice. Just do it. Just put something out there. You'll get either good feedback or bad feedback, but any feedback is good because then you'll kind of learn what your audience wants and you can cater to that. So just get started. Just put that reel up, just put that post up, just tweet that message out. Now they have fleets, put that out there, put it out there, do your TikTok video. And it's okay to kind of try to find yourself. You may not have like the perfect message, but put yourself out there and try to find your niche. Everyone will say, find your niche, find your niche,
Right.
Figure out what that is and make sure that's something that's uniquely you. So yeah, I just say get started, put your voice out there, try to post things that are uniquely you, something that you're passionate about, because there are going to be times where you don't want to post, or maybe you have to take a break. I had to take a break from social media because I had my research and my clinical responsibilities and things. Sometimes you have to take a break, and that's okay, although you want to try to be as consistent as possible. So just do it. That's my main advice.
Okay. All right. We'll throw in Nike in there. Just do it and get started. Do you have a recommendation as to you feel like which platform is best to get started in?
So the thing is, you need to learn each platform, like, and figure out which one you kind of already are using. So I personally I started with IG, so I like IG. Sorry about the background noise, but so to me, that's an easy platform. I think that, you should try to, for example, like Twitter, you really do need to tweet like a couple times a day in order to get popular. And that's actually a really easy platform. You say what's on your mind, and then you put out, it's a character limit, and then you put it out. You also can retweet. So Twitter is a really easy platform. I think that you should think about what you're trying to share. And then so Instagram is more visual. So if what you're sharing is more pictures, video, that's a great platform. If you want to kind of get your voice out, put it out, publish data or like articles, Twitter would probably be a better platform. You could also do Facebook, although I would probably not let that be my first one. You use kind of move and pop in platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. are going to be like my top recommendations in regards to teaching people, or that's my goal, to teach people, but to get your business out there. You can also have your like develop a website, but again, you need the social media platforms to promote what's on your website. So those are just my few suggestions. Although I'm not like the, cream of the crop. Please, there are a lot of like YouTube videos. That's where I started. There's a lot of YouTube videos that help you master these platforms. It's people who have thousands and millions of followers. They give a lot of advice. You'll see a lot of the advice is the same. Be consistent, find your niche, use hashtags. And so doing all these things really help.
All right. So find your niche first. Find your preferred platform. Be consistent. And be relatable and engaging. Because, and then another thing is, a lot of times you don't know who wants to hear what you have to say until you say it. And then if you build it, they will come. And then go from there, just do it, as Dr. Bird says. So that's kind of your digital presence and what you've been doing now. However, ladies and gentlemen, she didn't stop there. She's now, the influence and how she does healthcare and medicine goes outside of the digital space. And so moving outside of that, you've done some work with, health disparities and COVID-19. We talked about infectious disease and COVID-19, not only disease, but vaccination, education, and advocacy. So tell us kind of about each of those projects, whether, from health disparities to then, this pandemic work that, of course, recently, in the past year and a half has happened that you've now had to, jump into.
Yeah, so I'm always interested in health disparities. And for me, my main focus had primarily been making sure that people of color matriculate into medical school and through medical education. However, when the pandemic hit, I was an adult infectious disease fellow, and I personally live in Rhode Island right now, and I was seeing people of color being disproportionately hospitalized and dying from COVID-19. I witnessed this with my own eyes. And I said, you know what? I want to do something. First, it was just let's get the message out here. Look, this is a problem. Before, there was big news story. We were already witnessing this in the hospital. So last summer, I was invited to be part of our lifespan COVID-19 clinical trial, COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial group. And initially I was like, I don't know about this vaccine. I know I'm an infectious disease doctor, but I don't want them experimenting on us. I had my own doubt, but I really had to go back to the principles of infection. And so if you really think back in the kind of early 20th century, a lot of infections were really killing us and causing a lot of harm. Specifically smallpox was an issue, strep pneumo was an issue, a lot of different infections. When we developed vaccines against these infections, we were able to significantly decrease the amount of people getting sick from them. And in the case of smallpox, we were able to eliminate smallpox. Nobody gets smallpox anymore. So then I was like, okay, well, I know in principle, vaccination will probably help us get us out of this pandemic. But what is the science behind it? After I did my own research, and look, the science was good. People, low harm in regards to the people in the vaccine trials. I said, okay, I'm going to be involved. So my specific task was to convince Black people to enroll in the trial.
Okay.
That was an uphill battle because
I can imagine.
All the physicians. So this is September. Okay. All the physicians I talked to, they said, look, I'm not getting that vaccine, no. All of the people, at my Black church, no. The pastor said no. All these people said no. And I'm like, okay, well, nobody is saying yes. So why? That was the question. And so I said, okay, then I really started sitting down, having intimate conversations with people to figure out what their primary concern. And a lot of it was just they didn't know about the science. They were just really nervous, and really, it triggered bad experiences that they had with the healthcare system in the past. And I said, okay, I get it. Now, this is the information I can offer you to address some of your concerns. And so I started at my church, and I actually was able to speak to the congregation virtually because we're still in the middle of the pandemic.
Right.
I reached out to local organizations in Rhode Island, the Providence NAACP, the African American Alliance Group, the African American Ambassadors Group in Rhode Island, the African Alliance Group of Rhode Island. So I just reached out to multiple people, and people were very hesitant still.
Right.
So I was like,
Vaccine
okay.
hesitancy is a big thing. Yep.
Yeah, so then I said, you know what, I'm going to put the facts out because I was doing a lot of Zoom sessions. I said, look, I'm going to put the facts out on YouTube. Let me just start making videos, posting on my IG accounts. And then in January, some of the work that I was doing, really trying to reach out to people of color here in Rhode Island, was picked up by the Providence Journal. So I'm just going to take a quick break just to wave at the motion sensor. Okay, sorry. So I was interviewed for our local newspaper, the Providence Journal, about the work that I was doing, really trying to address disparities and really try to talk to people about getting the vaccine. Not pressuring people, but just addressing people's concerns. Because I don't pressure people into getting the vaccine. At the end of the day, it's your choice. That's my personal take on it. Even though I'm somebody who advocates for the vaccine and who has received it, at the end of the day, I don't want anybody to be pressured. So that story got picked up by Good Morning America,
Okay.
the What You Need to Know. So that third hour. And so I was lucky enough to be interviewed on that program. And so from there, a lot of opportunities for me to speak to different groups here in Rhode Island, up and down the East Coast, other parts of the US kind of opened up. And I ended up doing like nearly 20 like Q&A sessions, talking to people, answering questions about the vaccine.
During that Good Morning America session?
No,
or
after
something?
that, like for the next 2 months after that, I was like really using the momentum from that appearance to really reach people, because I was being invited to, hey, can you talk to my group? Hey, we have these questions. Hey,
Got it.
So from there, I continue to work with local community leaders. And because of our relationship with me kind of speaking to their congregations or to their organizations, when they approached the Rhode Island Department of Health saying, look, people of color are being under vaccinated. What are we going to do about it? So in conjunction with the community leaders in the Rhode Island Department of Health, we were able to organize mass COVID-19 vaccination events for our BIPOC community in Rhode Island. So we ultimately had like 5 vaccine clinics.
And for those who don't know what BIPOC is, can you let?
Yeah, so that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's what it stands for. Or what the Rhode Island Department of Health calls them, our health equity COVID-19 vaccine weekends. That's another term for what we did. So basically, these events really encouraged people of color, people who were traditionally underrepresented in regards to population and people, so Hispanics, Asian, Blacks, so forth and so on, and people who were in areas that had high COVID-19 rates were encouraged to come to these vaccine clinics and get vaccinated. And so my primary part was not only promoting these events, but actually providing vaccinators, specifically vaccinators of color, so that people, when they came, they hopefully were able to see a vaccinator who looked like them. That was the overall goal.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
and when you guys did those, were they like in a specific place that people had to come, or did you guys like kind of go from like community to community, or how does?
Yeah, so at the time we had a pretty large vaccination site at the Duncan Center, which is a pretty large stadium here in Providence. We also had a clinic in Woonsocket, which is kind of northern Rhode Island towards Mass. And so people had to come to either one of those clinics. There were buses available for people who didn't have transportation. There were people who spoke multiple languages, for people who either had issues with reading or where English wasn't their first language. So we really tried to facilitate making this process easier, for people. So ultimately it resulted in nearly 8,000 people who identify as being a minority of the groups that I listed, got vaccinated on those 5 clinics.
And how many days did you guys
do?
So
there were 5 days.
Okay.
So 5 separate days over like 3 weekends.
Okay, got it. Not the same time each time, or yes, the same time?
They were about the same time. It's like from 9 to 6, each of those days, each of the 5 days.
And you went every 5 days, like all of these 5 days?
Yeah, I was there.
Look at you.
So yes, it was tiring.
So before, I was actually going to ask about transportation, because that's part of, there's various barriers to healthcare, right? And I think it's important for people to discern healthcare versus medicine, right? So healthcare is an all-encompassing word, and of which there are many professionals, health professionals. And shameless plug, we'll be talking to different various health professionals in this podcast, amen. But medicine itself is a part of healthcare, obviously a particular part of healthcare, in which there are different medical professionals or professionals that practice regular clinical medicine or traditional clinical medicine. But in so doing, whatever your role is, or your primary role in the world of healthcare, that doesn't mean you have to stay in that. You can do different things. And there's different aspects of healthcare that impact whatever that role is. So as a medical doctor, there are different social determinants of health, which then impact your patients, which obviously impacts you and the care that you give those patients. So a lot of underrepresented and under-resourced areas, one of the main issues they have is transportation, whether it's trying to find a bus to a regular doctor's visit or trying to find transportation to vaccination site. Another challenge is reaching those people. So how did you guys tackle getting the word out?
So it wasn't the direct efforts of myself. Like, I promoted the events on my social media platforms, but it was really community volunteers calling their friends, calling their families, having like phone trees where there's just calling people. Also people, through the church. I feel like that's like a big way to get to
the word out.
African American community in particular, because Reverend so-and-so said this, and then it goes to John and Jim, and
word travels fast in church.
Yes. So
that's like, what's that? The game of telephone. Although just tell the pastor and the first lady or the deacon and people will know.
Yes. So that was actually another way. Also, the Rhode Island Department of Health was actually, in the governor's office, was very helpful in that they helped create flyers and programming, and provided a number for people to call to help sign people up. Everyone isn't computer savvy, so some people just needed a phone. Sometimes our website isn't that user-friendly for someone who may have limited literacy or limited knowledge of how to work a computer. So a number of ways. Our intervention was not perfect. However, it was impactful.
And that is the most important, right? Because you can always troubleshoot. You can always troubleshoot your intervention. Thomas Edison didn't get his inventions in the first try, I'm sure. So it's not about perfection. It's about being open to whatever may come up that may be needed to do. But again, impactful is the most important, because you don't know how many people convinced their friends or families to get it because of you guys, because they got it through you guys. Like, oh yeah, they picked me up. And then I was able to go wherever. And then maybe that person came in on day 3 that wouldn't have otherwise come. And so I think it's important to, when you see something that needs to get done, do something, be the change you want to see. When you talk, say something. All of these things are important, but you did mention something that is overlooked. It's great that you're doing all these things, but I think, as I mentioned earlier in Dr. Bird's introduction, she is rounding out, the end of her training. And in medicine, there are levels. You're in med school, and then you go into residency, and then you can choose to end there after residency, or some people go in subspecialize. Well, currently, Dr. Bird is, when she mentioned Rhode Island, she's at Brown. She's at Brown University doing her subspecialty training, aka her fellowship, which was kind of this dual adult and pediatric infectious disease fellowship. So she's like a full-blown fellow, and that's not, you can't be a part-time trainee. That's not a thing. You can't cut your hours. Your hours are your hours. Your call schedule is your call schedule. But talk to, again, here at Dynamic Doc Space, we celebrate multidimensionality, but with that, we want to also highlight feasibility and how can be that we want to do, and whatever we want to do, and whatever we want to be involved in. So how did you find time to be a full-fledged, full-time, all-the-time trainee, and also be part of these important impacts, whether it's doing the talks or being, an essential member of your community, kind of boots on the ground type thing?
All right, so it's definitely difficult. In regards to my training, all of this came about, I feel like I was blessed and lucky. So a lot of my training before the pandemic was pretty clinical heavy, working long hours. So I really didn't have the availability to do this work. However, now that I'm on the pediatric side, I have more availability, more free time, more flexibility. And so just my schedule eased up. But really, it's about really prioritizing and just making the time, which is easier said than done. Sometimes I'm getting up way early in the morning to do things. Sometimes I'm staying, up late to do content creation. Sometimes, my attendings say, hey, you really need to protect your weekends. If you have the weekend off, you need to be all the way off. And I'm like, look, when do I have time? Because when everyone else is off, I'm not saying don't take time for yourself. Please do not lead with that message.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, if you really want to be productive outside of your everyday job, you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of that free time. If you get off at 5, maybe you need to spend an hour or 2 working on your content or doing your extra community service, as opposed to, okay, I have 5 on, I'm just doing me. I think that, if you have time for what you want to do.
Okay.
Just think about that. You really have time, and you prioritize what you want to do. Things that you aren't doing, if you're not doing it, most likely you just haven't put the time in it and you don't want to. Because when you really want to do it and you really, say, hey, I'm going to make this a priority, you're able to put the time together. Maybe it's just 15 minutes. Now, I did give an example of an hour or 2, but maybe it's just 15 minutes here and there throughout your, day. 4 15-minute blocks is an hour. And you can, just if you think of it like that. So I just made a decision that I really wanted to teach people online. I really wanted to be involved in my community, specifically when it came to teaching people, making sure people really understood the dangers of COVID-19, as well as increasing access and exposure to the vaccine. These are things that were really important to me. So I made the time for it. I'm not saying it's easy, you know, I sacrifice sleep, you know, sacrifice a little bit of peace of mind, you know, just to get it done.
I like that. A little bit of peace of mind. So then what people also don't realize too, so you talked about some local stuff that you did, right? And also England Medical Association, which is a branch of a local branch of the National Medical Association. And that, so again, that's NEMA, NEMA. And so we're both part of that, the New England Medical Association. And as being part of that, Dr. Bird's an active member of that organization. So that's, you know, she is, I believe, the head of the mentorship committee. So talk to me a little bit about why you felt that was important. And again, with everything that you had going on, why you felt it was important for that, because I imagine you're relatively selective as to what you add on to your plate, right? Because you have other things going on, so you can't add everything that comes up. Not that the things that come up aren't either important or needed, but you have to be relatively selective on, okay, I'm gonna add that on, okay. Let me find a space to add this on. Talk to us about why you felt like being part of spearheading the mentorship arm of NEMA was important.
Well, it just kind of speaks to my core values because, like I said in the beginning, in regards to my health disparities work, the way I traditionally address health disparities, in my opinion, is to increase the number of people who are taking care of people of color. Increase the diversity. I feel that our patient population should reflect. I feel that the healthcare providers who are taking care of a diverse, you know, patient population should reflect what their patient population looks like. And so for me, I believe that it is so important to reach back to people who are pre-med, med students, residents, you know, other fellows. Like, it's really important because I didn't get here by myself. I had mentors, I had people to talk, you know, and give me advice. And so it's important to me that we are really uplifting and encouraging each other. Specifically, so one of my mentees is a med student. And I'm like, look, I made these mistakes and I'm telling you about the mistakes that I'm making. And I want to be vulnerable with you because I don't want you to make the mistakes that I did. You know, I ultimately was successful, but if I can tell you something or give you some advice that, you know, can prevent you from having to undergo the pitfalls that I went through,
right,
this is what I want to do.
And so what would you say to, because I think we can all agree that the number of people seeking mentorship is not congruent with the number of people giving mentorship, right? There's more people who want, you know, who are our mentees or want to be mentees. That number is greater than people who either, you know, who sign up to be mentors. And so, and there's different barriers to that. So then what would you say to someone who's like, I mean, I want to be a mentor. I agree it's important, but because I've heard, you know, I don't know that I, right now where I am, I don't know that I have enough to offer because maybe I'm not where I want to be. Or, I mean, do I have time to provide mentorship? I know I have to meet with them a certain time. I don't know that I have that time right now. What would you say to someone who is interested in mentorship? Maybe they don't know that they have what it takes to be a good mentor because they're not sure what that is. Maybe they didn't have a mentor, so they don't know what that looks like. And, or they're just questioning whether they have, you know, the time.
All right. I think if you want to be a mentor, you can do it. No mentor is perfect. You know, like please eliminate this picture of perfection in your minds, because I feel like that's a huge barrier for a lot of people. They think, oh, well, I have to email my mentee every week, and I don't do that. I don't have time for that. So I think that if you want to be a mentor, do it. Sign up. We need more mentors. Just a plug.
We'll talk about that plug a little later.
But, I think that you can do it. Though in regards to the time piece, you really do have to be honest with yourself. I think that depending on your mentee, you might only need to meet with them every few months. I think sometimes people have this expectation that I need to meet with them every week or every month. That's not necessarily the case, depending on depending on the type of relationship you want to have. Think about who would you feel comfortable mentoring. That's number one. And two, like, what time can you commit to it? If you think about those two things, then you're less likely to sign up for a relationship that you aren't able to fulfill. And let's say you decide to sign up to be a mentor, talk to your mentee and say, look, this is what I can offer. We can meet every other month, and these are the things that I can offer you as your mentor. Is this something, is this acceptable? Is this something you want? Being very upfront about what you can offer, because then, it's in the mentee's court to say, yes, this is good, or no, I want something different. So like being honest, open and honest on both sides, the mentor and mentee side, is really, really, really important. If you want to be a mentor, you can. People say, like, please don't think that you're inadequate. Okay, it's almost like the imposter syndrome, like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. You're good enough. Okay, you're an adult.
You're good enough.
You are good enough. Like, you made
in
it in medicine, or you made it in your career. Then whatever it is, even outside of medicine, you have a job, or even if you're unemployed, you still have lived life and you have life experiences. So then you can reach back and say, even if you made all the mistakes, that is actually valuable experience, because at least you recognize, hey, you know what, I could have done life differently, and I'm not quite where I am. Maybe I can talk to this young person and, steer them a different way so they don't make some of the same mistakes that I made. So I think people need to get this idea of perfection out of their head, because it's not real. Nobody is perfect. I don't care what they put on Instagram. I don't care what they put on social media. I don't care what your perception of them. They are not perfect. They still get sick. They still have bad days. They do exactly what we do. So
put their pants on one leg at a time.
Exactly.
So then, through that plug that we talked about earlier, for those who are in the New England area and either A, want to participate, or be part of the New England Medical Association, and also be part of the National Medical Association at large, where can they find the information if they want to sign up to be a mentor, or they want to sign up to be a mentee?
Okay, so I can't remember the exact name of the NEMA website, but if you Google NEMA, NEMA, you will find New England Medical, or Google New England Medical Association website will pop up. You look under,
They're also on Instagram at NEMA.org. Yep.
Yes. So you can find on the page, the mentorship page, and at the bottom, scroll to the bottom, there's a link.
I'll double check that for you. Yep. Exactly. So it's NEMAORG. That's their Instagram. So you're gonna, you get that and you're golden. So then if you want the website, it is www.nema-nma.org. So that's kind of how you get access to just a general website where you can find all the information you need, including information about the mentorship program or the mentorship arm of the New England Medical Association, the Dr. Bird is spearheading. So get you out there, get you some mentorship, or be a blessing to somebody and be a mentor.
Hallelujah. Okay, we need to be here by ourselves.
Right. Your voice I think if you know nothing else on this podcast, know that your voice is important. So is your presence. So is your presentation, or you being present, and the presentation of you, meaning just you being there, is an inspiration to people. So now that we've kind of talked mostly about your journey, what would you say have been the most challenging part of your journey thus far?
I think the most challenging part for me is giving myself grace and forgiving myself for not accomplishing my goals the way I think they should have been accomplished. I'm very hard on myself. I'm very goal oriented. And what I've been trying to do is kind of channel a spirit of gratitude and grace. And so that, like, as of late has kind of been some of my struggles in regards to this. Because, like, it's okay if you don't sign up to be a mentor or don't get that research project done when you thought you were going to get it done, or didn't volunteer for that community program, or didn't answer that email right away. It is okay. All you can do is strive to be the best you possible. And sometimes I struggle with accepting that. And so I'm thinking, look, the way I come is enough. Who I am is enough. And what I can give you is enough. So that's what I'm channeling.
You are enough. That's right. So I have my Not Today Satan shirt on, because sometimes there's a lot of obstacles to overcome. Whether we talked about imposter syndrome earlier, we talked about feelings of inadequacy, feelings that because you're not where you want to be, then it doesn't matter where you've come, how far you've come. And to that we say, not today, Satan. I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Get thee out of my way. And so, yeah, I think it's important to do grace and gratitude. So I like that. So with that, what about, what's your most rewarding part? Like, what's the best part so far, or it's been like you're most proud of thus far in your journey? Your most proud part, your most proud either accomplishment or moment.
I think so recently, one of my mentees, I was mentoring someone who was applying to residency, and I believe she got into her top choice, which that actually really made me happy, because she was so nervous. It wasn't that she got into her top choice. I felt like I inspired her to be the best her. Like, she was so self-conscious. Oh, what about this? What about this? I don't know about this. And I'm like, stop it. You are great. You're awesome. And because she kind of exuded that in her interviews, in her application. And so when the people I talk to and inspire do well, that makes me happy. I look at their accomplishment as my accomplishment. I'm like, yes, I'm so happy for you. So, when those types of things happen, it's my proudest moments. Like, one of my, it's like in July, so it's like the new trainees are coming in, and we have a new intern that's rotating with us, and she signed her first note of residency, and she was so happy. Like, those types of things make me happy. It's really, I don't know, I'm just truly happy about those things.
Good. Yeah, everyone, people's big moments are your big moments too, and you feel excited about that. What would be with what you've learned so far, what would be like your biggest advice that you'd like to share with people?
I think believe in yourself and trust your gut. I think that a lot of times people don't accomplish their goals or don't do what they want to do in life because they're listening to the naysayers, or listening to that naysayer in their head, like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, look, you dropped out of school. You had that baby when you weren't quite ready, or you don't have good grades, or you don't look like what other people look like who are in the position that you want to be in. And I said, look,
Not today, Satan.
Exactly. Like, really have confidence in yourself, because I personally believe in God. And I think that when you have a desire to do something in regards to your career, I honestly think that is God instilling purpose in you. I believe that God wouldn't give you that idea, wouldn't give you that desire without a plan. And so I say, be confident in yourself, regardless of if you believe in God or not. Be confident in yourself and go for your goals wholeheartedly without hesitation. And this is what successful people do. The last thing I want to say is you cannot be afraid to fail. Failure is great. Failure is where you're going to learn the best lessons. Failure is really where you're going to learn about yourself. And really, it's the failures that really strengthen you and really give you that grit, so that when you get to that next level and people are tripping about like, oh, this happened, you like, look, I failed so many times. What happened? What's gonna happen if I don't get accepted into the program? Been there, done that. Personally didn't get accepted into med school the first time. What's going to happen if they don't accept my paper? What's going to happen if I walk up to this person and they reject me? Been there, done that. Keep it moving. And so it's like, don't fail wholeheartedly, because that is where you're going to learn your lesson, so that these are just stepping stones to the next level.
That's right. I love it. You can't climb a mountain that's smooth. I love it. So with that, it's a great way to end. We like to thank Dr. Katrina Bird for being our guest today. Before we end, can you quickly share to us, where you are now and your social media handles? Because we know you're, widely digital as well.
All right, so my IG handle and my IG and Twitter handle is Dr_KBYRD. Again, it's Dr_K Bird. You can find me on IG, Twitter. I also have a website, which is KatrinaBird.com, where you can find all my social media handles and everything.
Yep, and it's Bird with a Y.
Yes.
Not an IRD.
EYRD.
Yep, and then tell us what you're up to now.
So right now I'm finishing up pediatric infectious disease fellowship, and I have applied to a job at the CDC. So I haven't heard from them. We'll see, hopefully.
Yes, and you're doing some research?
Yes, so I'm doing a couple of research projects. So the biggest one is I'm looking at pregnancy outcomes and characteristics in women living with HIV in Rhode Island. I also was looking at COVID-19 infection in people living with HIV in Rhode Island also. And so I'll probably be continuing that work moving forward.
Nice. So we're doing some HIV work, or applying to, new jobs at the CDC, and we're continuing our work with social media. So that is all things the, versed Dr. Katrina Bird. And so again, we'd like to thank her so very much for being a guest on our podcast today and sharing her journey and her story and how she does medicine, in healthcare in general, because she's, like I said, multiverse. And so with that, we'll end our podcast, and definitely thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. So this has been the Dynamic Doc with our guests, and always encouraging and reminding you to live your life fully, on purpose, for a purpose. Make sure you check out previous episodes, and please be safe, be healthy, and be blessed. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you next time. Be blessed. Peace.